Rain crawled down the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive hallway, tracing silver lines over the city lights far below. The top floor of Novacore Labs was quiet at this hour. Most offices were dark computer screens, asleep only the corner suite at the end of the corridor still lit. Claire Bennett stood in front of that door, with her hand around the handle. Her fingers were damp, not just from the weather. Her pulse beat hard in her throat, loud enough that it almost drowned out the distant hum of the building's ventilation. Through the glass panel, she could see him. Adrian Cole sat behind his desk. Sleeves rolled up tie loosened the light from his monitor, washing his face in a cold glow. A thick folder lay open in front of him, pages fanned out. On the top sheet, bold black letters spelled out what she already knew from the rumors that had seeped through the company. Singapore Transition Agreement. His pen hovered above the signature line. The tip did not move. Claire tightened her grip on the handle, then let it go. Her palm left a faint print on the brushed metal. Her breath clouded the glass as she leaned in just enough to see his face more clearly. He looked tired, not just end-of-the-day tired, the kind of tired that sits in a person's bones. She swallowed and forced herself to inhale slowly. "If I walk away now, that is it," she whispered so quietly, the words were more breath than sound. Behind the glass, Adrian shifted shoulders, tensing. His hand lowered a fraction. The pen tapped the paper once. Claire stepped back from the door, as if the air between them had become too thick. She could feel the weight of everything that had brought her to this hallway, to this decision. It did not start with contracts or board meetings or whispered gossip. It had started somewhere else. 3 months earlier, on a Monday morning, the lobby of Novacore Labs smelled faintly of coffee and rain. Glass walls caught the gray Seattle sky, turning it into a soft, diffused light that spilled across polished concrete floors and potted fiddle leaf figs. People moved through security gates with badges and travel mugs, the low hum of conversation blending with the ping of elevators. Claire stepped in from the drizzle, with her umbrella half closed and her tote bag slipping off one shoulder. Her hair, the parts she had carefully smoothed flat that morning, had already started to curl at the edges. She shook the worst of the water from the umbrella, folded it, and turned toward the reception desk. She almost tripped over a small figure sitting cross-legged on the floor. The girl was about 9, maybe 10, with dark hair pulled into a slightly crooked ponytail. Noise-canceling headphones sat over her ears. A spiral-bound notebook rested across her knees. She had drawn a cluster of tiny stars in pencil, then was connecting them with straight lines in blue ink. "You are blocking Orion," the girl said without looking up. Claire froze, then took a quick half-step to the side. "Oh, sorry." The girl glanced up at her eyes, a sharp, assessing gray. She studied Claire the way someone might study a puzzle piece that had just been dumped out of the box. "That is not Orion," Claire added. She pointed at the page before she could stop herself. "That is Cassiopeia. Orion has a belt, 3 stars in a row." The girl tilted her head, then peered back down at the drawing. She pressed her lips together, considering, and slowly added another star, then another, changing the pattern. "Cassiopeia," she repeated softly, as if testing the word in her mouth. "Good morning, Ms. Bennett. Already giving astronomy lessons?" The voice came from behind her, deep, warm, edged with amusement. Claire turned. She had seen photos of Adrian Cole on the company website and on tech blogs. They had not prepared her for the way he filled the space in person. The navy suit, open collar hair, just a little too long at the back, as if he had missed his last haircut. The kind of pale blue eyes that looked almost silver in the lobby light. "You must be the new director of people," he said. "Claire Bennett, right?" He extended a hand. His smile was polite, the one executives save for board members and press. Up close, she could see the faint line between his brows that did not quite go away even when he smiled. "I am," she said, shifting the umbrella awkwardly to her left hand so she could shake with her right. "And you must be the man everyone warned me about." One corner of his mouth lifted. "Warned you? They said you never sleep, never take a day off, and that you scare the interns without meaning to." He huffed out a quiet laugh. The little girl on the floor watched their exchange, as if she were watching 2 actors rehearse. Adrian glanced down at her, then back at Claire. "In that case, I should probably be offended," he said. "But you showed up on time on a Monday in this city in this weather. I think I will give you the benefit of the doubt." He took her hand. There was a brief pressure, warm skin, a tiny electric jolt that ran up her arm before she could tell herself not to imagine things. If he felt it too, his face did not show it. The girl rose smoothly to her feet, notebook hugged to her chest. "This is Zoe," Adrian said. His voice softened, without losing any of its strength. "My daughter." Zoe spoke before Claire could. "You were late. You said we would not be long." "I said we would try," Adrian corrected gently. "That is different." He rested a hand lightly on her shoulder. His touch was protective but not possessive, fingers relaxed as if he knew exactly how much pressure she could tolerate. Claire crouched a little to bring herself closer to Zoe's eye level. "Hi, Zoe. I am Claire. I am new here." Zoe studied her again. The intensity of her gaze felt almost like a physical thing. Then very seriously she said, "Your hair looks like it does not like the rain." Claire blinked, then laughed. "It really does not." Zoe nodded satisfied and opened her notebook again. On the page, Cassiopeia was now connected a lazy W against a field of dots. "Come on," Adrian said. "We should let Ms. Bennett start her first day without us blocking the lobby." "Claire," she corrected, "I am only Ms. Bennett in terrifying email chains." This time his smile reached his eyes. "Welcome to Novacor, Claire." They headed toward the elevator bank together. Adrian swiped his badge, the door slid open and the three of them stepped inside. The space was lined with mirrored steel, bright with recessed lighting. The elevator chimed softly and began to rise. Halfway up, the lights flickered. The hum in the small space shifted. Zoe stiffened. Her grip on the notebook tightened. Her breathing quickened in short, sharp bursts. Adrian noticed immediately. He moved so he was standing directly in front of her, blocking some of the overhead glare. "Zoe," he said, voice low and even, "look at me." She looked at his chest, not his eyes. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a small cylinder. He clicked a button. Soft green light spilled onto the elevator ceiling, forming a scattered field of tiny stars. "Map them," he murmured. "Start from Cassiopeia." Zoe tipped her head back. The tension in her shoulders eased just a little. She lifted the notebook and began searching the ceiling for familiar patterns. Claire watched, saying nothing. She could taste the metallic tang of elevator air and the faint scent of Adrian's cologne, something clean and not overly sharp. He held the little projector steady, his own shoulders relaxing only after Zoe's breathing slowed. The elevator reached the top floor. The doors opened with a quiet chime. "Here we are," he said. "Executive level, infinite meetings and terrible coffee." He clicked off the projector, sliding it back into his pocket. Zoe kept her eyes on the ground as they stepped out, but her hand had relaxed around the spiral binding of her notebook. A woman from HR met Claire outside the elevator and began her tour. Conference rooms with glass walls, open workspaces, a wall-sized motto in matte black letters, "Build what lasts." Claire filed the words away without thinking too hard about why they lodged in her mind. By mid-morning, her new badge was activated, her laptop was on her desk, and a stack of digital onboarding documents waited in her inbox. She had met 3 department heads, 2 project leads, and precisely one person who seemed more interested in people than in metrics. That one knocked on her open door at exactly 3 in the afternoon. "Apparently I am overdue for my quarterly HR check-in," Adrian said, leaning against the frame with a paper cup in hand. "And since you are new, I thought I would make a good first impression." Claire glanced at the calendar on her screen. "There is no check-in on my schedule." He lifted his cup. "You caught me. I bribed your coordinator with coffee." "That is unethical," she said. "I respect the initiative." He stepped inside. The office was not large, but it had a window that looked out over the city. Rain beaded on the glass. The sky was a solid sheet of gray. They talked about policies at first, hiring pipelines, burnout, exit interviews, all the things she had been hired to fix. At what point she asked, "Do you intervene when you see your people heading for a wall?" "When they are close enough to hit it," he replied. "If I stopped them every time they picked up speed, nothing would ever get built." "Do you apply that to yourself too?" she asked. He blinked once, surprised. "What makes you think I am heading for a wall?" "Your calendar," she said. 14-hour days. Back-to-back calls with Singapore and London. No vacations, no white space. She gestured toward his face. "That line between your eyes." He rubbed his forehead almost self-consciously. "Founders do not take days off," he said lightly. "Founders are still people," she answered. "Or, so I have been told." A corner of his mouth lifted. Before he could say anything else, another voice cut in. "Dad?" Zoe stood in the doorway, headphones around her neck hair, a little frizzier than it had been that morning. She held something tucked behind her back. "I thought you were in class," Adrian said. "I was. I finished." She stepped into the office, eyes skipping over Claire before returning to her father. "You forgot your umbrella." She brought her hands forward. In them was not an umbrella, but a page from her notebook. On it she had drawn a heavy gray cloud and a stick figure standing under it, with a scribbled circle above their head. "It is you," Zoe said to Claire. "From this morning, you did not have one." Claire took the drawing carefully. The lines were sure and dark. The cloud was almost comically large. The stick figure had messy hair. "Thank you," she said. Her throat felt unexpectedly tight. Zoe nodded once, satisfied, then looked at Adrian. "We are late for the bus." He checked his watch. "Right, go grab your backpack. I will meet you at the elevator." When Zoe left, the room felt a little quieter. "She does not like the rain either," he said. Claire looked down at the drawing again. Outside drops chased one another down the window, racing to the bottom of the glass. "I am starting to think," she said, "that it is not about the rain." Adrian followed her gaze for a moment, then pushed himself away from the door. "Welcome to your first day, Claire," he said. "You survived." He left her alone in the office. Claire set the drawing carefully against her monitor, propping it up so the cloud and the little figure stood guard over her desk. Then she turned back to her inbox and the list of things she had been hired to change, while the rain kept falling on the city outside. By the end of her first week, Claire could find her way from the lobby to her office without checking the digital directory. Her badge no longer flashed red at the wrong turnstile. The security guard in the morning started greeting her by name. She began to recognize people by the rhythm of their footsteps in the hallway and the way they carried their stress. Seattle kept raining. Some mornings it was a light mist, barely there, just enough to turn the sidewalk slick. Other days the clouds sat low and heavy over the city, soaking everything. From her office window, the glass blurred the outlines of cranes and ferry boats until they looked like shadows behind frosted glass. On Thursday, she was ushered into a conference room on the executive floor for her first senior leadership meeting. The room looked like something out of a magazine. Long white table, screens on 2 walls, glass on the third with a view that stretched past the waterfront to where the sky and water met. The motto Claire had noticed on her first day was etched in small letters on the far wall. "Build what lasts." She took a seat halfway down the table, set her notebook in front of her, and watched people drift in. Adrian arrived 2 minutes before the hour, laptop under one arm, coffee in the other. He had changed his tie, but not his habit of loosening it by midday. He greeted each person by name. He remembered details too. A kid's soccer game, a parent's surgery. It was subtle, but Claire saw how shoulders relaxed when he stopped by a chair. The only person he did not greet that way was the man who slid into the seat at his right. "Morning," the man said, dropping a tablet on the table. His voice carried an easy confidence that did not bother with warmth. "Let us see who survived this week." He was in his early 40s, trim with dark blonde hair that looked carefully messy. His suit was perfectly cut, the kind of perfection that came from tailors rather than luck. His eyes were pale and cool, the color of old ice. "Claire," Adrian said, catching her eye. "This is Damien Shaw, our Chief Operating Officer. Damien, our new Director of People and Culture." Damien turned his head, assessing her in a single fast sweep. He smiled, polite, but something in it did not reach his eyes. "Welcome to the circus," he said. "I hear you are here to make us nicer." "I am here to make you sustainable," Claire replied. "Bambu the I'm nowhere to disifted." A few people around the table chuckled. Damien's gaze sharpened slightly, then he nodded as if he had found something he had expected. The meeting started. Slides lit up on the screens, numbers, charts, projections. Discussion of a product launch they wanted to move up by a quarter. Concerns about hiring bottlenecks in engineering. Someone mentioned burnout twice. When it was her turn, Claire spoke clearly and kept her points focused. "We are pulling people from one fire to the next," she said. "It works in the short term. Over a year, it becomes a pattern. Over 3 years, it becomes a culture. I would like to start by mapping workloads and rebuilding expectations around rest." "Rest is a luxury in our space," Damien said. "We are not making scented candles. We are trying to stay ahead of much larger players." "I understand that," Claire said, "but if we burn people out faster than we can replace them, we are building a revolving door, not a company." Adrian did not cut in. He watched the exchange, fingers laced loosely on the table, eyes moving between them. After a moment, he said, "Put together a proposal. Show us what you need. We will look at where we can experiment." Claire nodded, noting the words. Not a full yes, not a dismissal. As the conversation shifted to future markets, one word caught her attention. Singapore, said the head of strategy, pointing at a slide. "If we want a foothold in Asia, we need someone on the ground, someone with real authority." "Which is why we have been talking to the board about a regional headquarters," Damien replied. "We can cover markets from there, move faster, diversify leadership." Claire made a note without thinking. Singapore, regional headquarters. She did not look up to see Adrian's reaction, but she felt the air in the room change by a degree, as if someone had opened a window a crack. When the meeting ended, chairs scraped back. People gathered their things, slid their phones out of meeting mode, checked the messages that had piled up. Damien closed his tablet and came around the table toward her. "That was an interesting point about culture," he said. He said the word as if it were a condiment, something nice to have if it did not interfere with the main dish. "Where did you work before this?" "A biotech company in Boston," Claire answered. "Before that, a manufacturing firm in Ohio." "So, you have seen slow industries," he said. "We are not slow here." "I have seen people convince themselves they can outrun their own limits," she said. "It looks the same at any speed." His mouth curved, spoken like someone who has never tried to lead a product into a global launch window. She met his gaze, spoken like someone who has had to pick up the pieces when the people who did that could not get out of bed anymore. The silence between them lasted just a beat longer than was comfortable. Then Damien nodded once as if she had passed a test he had not warned her about. "You and I will talk," he said, "soon." He walked away without waiting for a response. Adrian appeared at her side a moment later, carrying his laptop and his now empty coffee cup. "You handled him well," he said quietly. "I did not know I was supposed to handle him," she replied. "You are not," Adrian said. "He just likes to figure out if people are going to be obstacles or allies." "And which am I?" she asked. "That is what he is trying to decide," Adrian said. "That is what I am trying to decide, too. For what it is worth, I liked your suggestion about mapping workloads." "That is good to hear," Claire said, "since you are the one who keeps approving 12 meeting days." He smiled quick, then faded. "Comes with the territory." They walked out of the conference room together. Their reflections moved along the hallway glass beside them. For a second, Claire looked at the double image, the two of them side by side in the glass, slightly warped by the angle. In her office that afternoon, she buried herself in data, org charts, turnover reports, employee surveys from the past 3 years. The more she read, the more her pen filled the margins with arrows and circles. NovaCore had grown fast. The company had the improvisational feel of a garage project that had suddenly been handed several hundred people and a global client list. Processes lagged behind ambition. The same names showed up over and over on critical projects. The same few people were mentioned in exit interviews as the reason others had not quit sooner. She stayed late more often than she meant to. It was easy to lose track of time under the soft hum of the ventilation system and the constant whisper of rain against glass. One evening, while she was finishing an email about a revised performance review process, she heard footsteps in the hallway and a single burst of laughter. Not polite boardroom laughter, a real laugh, short, startled, like someone had been surprised into it. She stood and stepped into the doorway. Adrian was halfway down the hall walking with Zoe. He did not have his laptop with him, only a leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder. Zoe was in sneakers and a navy hoodie, her ponytail skewed, a small backpack bouncing against her spine. He noticed Claire and slowed. Zoe kept walking until she realized he was not beside her, then doubled back with a slightly impatient huff. "You are still here," Adrian said. "Apparently I have absorbed the culture," Claire replied. Zoe's eyes flicked to Claire's desk. She noticed the drawing of the rain cloud propped against the monitor. Her face did not change, but something in her gaze softened. "You kept it," she said. "Of course I did," Claire answered. "It is the most accurate portrait anyone has ever drawn of me in this city." Zoe took a small object from her hoodie pocket and held it out. It was a tiny folded paper crane made from a strip of NovaCore sticky note. "For your desk," she said. "So, it is not only rain?" Claire accepted it carefully, half afraid it would crumble. "Thank you, Zoe." "But," Zoe reminded her father. "Right," Adrian said. "We will be in trouble if we miss it again." He looked back at Claire. "Try to leave before the cleaning crew starts to worry about you." "I make no promises," she said. He nodded, then followed Zoe toward the elevator. Claire watched them go until the doors closed, their reflections sliding together on the metal surface before the mirror went blank. She went back to her desk and set the paper crane beside the rain cloud. Glass rain cloud bird. Through the window, the city glowed under low clouds, the sky a diffuse, luminous gray. On her screen, a strategic planning document waited. She scrolled absent-mindedly, scanning headings and bullet points until one phrase snagged her attention. Global expansion, Asia-Pacific, potential Singapore hub. She read it twice, then marked the line with a digital note before closing the file. It was one item in a long list, no more urgent than the others on the page. Outside, the rain persisted against the glass, steady and unhurried, as if it had all the time in the world. By the second month, Claire knew the building well enough to move through it by instinct. She could tell what kind of day it would be by how people held their shoulders at the coffee counter and how early the engineering floor lights came on. She started running into Adrian in small pockets of the day, the places executives passed through on their way to something they considered more important. The upstairs kitchen, the short stretch of hallway outside the server room, the narrow balcony where people pretended to check their phones while they stared at the water. One Tuesday morning, she was battling the espresso machine in the executive kitchen when he walked in. The machine hissed and sputtered, as if offended. "Careful," he said. "It has a personal vendetta against people from HR." "Good," Claire replied. "Then it is the only honest machine in this place." He laughed softly and stepped closer, reaching for a clean mug. Their shoulders were almost level. From here, she could see that his tie was slightly crooked, as if he had put it on without a mirror. "You are in early," he said. "Even for you. Project review with engineering at 8, she answered. "I am taking coffee as emotional armor." He filled his mug, then inclined his head toward her. "Let me try," he said. He adjusted a setting, tapped a button she had somehow missed, and the machine calmed down. A dark, steady stream filled her cup. The smell of good coffee drifted up, cutting through the stale edge of office air. "Is that in your job description?" she asked. "Tech whisperer." "Founder perk," he said. "I broke it 3 times during the first year. They finally trained me so I would stop costing them money." She smiled, then lifted her cup. "So what is on your calendar apart from rescuing executives from kitchen equipment?" she asked. He took a slow sip before answering. "Board prep," he said. "Strategy reviews. A call with Singapore at midnight." There it was again, that word. "Busy day," she said. "Busy month," he replied. "That is what growth looks like. Or what burnout looks like," she said quietly. He studied her over the rim of his mug. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly, a sound that had faded into background noise until this moment. "You really do not like this part, do you?" he asked. "Which part is that?" she said, even though she knew. "The part where people work until something gives," he said. "The part where we pretend that is normal." She thought of the spreadsheets on her laptop, the anonymous survey where someone had written, "I love this place, but I have not seen my kids awake in 3 days." "I like when people care," she said. "I do not like when they think that caring means destroying themselves." "You are going to be very unpopular with some of our managers," he said. "I am familiar with that experience," she answered. He smiled again, that quick, real one, then glanced at the clock on the microwave. "You are going to be late," he said. "The elevator always stalls at floor 9 when it rains." "That is oddly specific," she said. "I have been trapped in that elevator more times than I care to admit," he replied. "Trust me." She picked up her coffee. "Then I will trust you on this one," she said, and left the kitchen with the sense that his gaze followed her a moment longer than necessary. The pattern continued. Coffee in the morning's hallway, jokes that slipped into conversations about load balancing and hiring, passing comments that revealed more than they pretended to. One afternoon, a rare stretch of sun broke through the clouds. The courtyard on the 8th floor, normally empty, filled with people who had escaped their desks to feel light on their faces. The concrete planters glistened where rain still clung to them. Patches of grass steamed gently. Claire brought her salad out to one of the small round tables. She opened her notebook to a page filled with arrows and boxes that mapped the bottlenecks in product. "Mind if I steal that chair?" a voice asked. She looked up. Adrian stood there with a takeout container in one hand and a bottle of sparkling water in the other. She nudged the chair out with her foot. "Only if you promise not to talk about revenue projections while I eat." "I left my laptop upstairs," he said. "You are safe." He sat, setting his food down. The sun caught in his hair, bringing out lighter strands. For once there was no phone in his hand, no blinking notification in the corner of a screen. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. The sound of distant traffic rose and fell with the breeze. Somebody from marketing laughed loudly across the courtyard. "You know, most CEOs do not come out here," Claire says. "And you have interviewed most CEOs?" Adrian asked. "I have read enough profiles," she said. "They always talk about grinding, hustling, whatever the phrase is this year. I do not see a lot of sun in those stories." He glanced up at the sky, squinting slightly. "Zoe likes it when the clouds break," he said. "She says the sky looks less noisy." "You mentioned she has sensory stuff," Claire said. "I thought about that after the elevator." "She has autism," he said. "High functioning according to the doctors. I do not love the term, but they needed something to write in their notes." He said it plainly, as if he had had to practice saying it that way with strangers. "She is brilliant," he added. "She just sees the world differently." Bright lights, sudden noises, crowded rooms. They hit her harder. Claire set her fork down. "Does everyone here know?" she asked. "Some do," he said. "I do not hide her. I bring her in sometimes. There are only so many hours in a day, and when school is out, she does not vanish into a closet." His tone sharpened slightly on the last words. She heard the echo of something else there. "And her mother?" she asked softly. He looked down at his untouched pasta, then back at the glass wall that separated the courtyard from the office. She left when Zoe was 2, he said. She said she did not sign up for this, that she could not live in a house that revolved around a child's routines and meltdowns. He spoke without bitterness, but the hurt sat under the words like a bruise. I am sorry, Claire said. He shrugged one shoulder. I learned how to build systems. That is what I do. At work. At home. Routines, checklists, backup plans. It is how we get through the day without everything collapsing. And you and Zoe, she said those systems work for you. They keep us moving, he said. I do not know if that is the same as working. She watched him for a moment. A breeze lifted the edge of the paper on her notebook. Somewhere above, a seagull called. Most people I meet, he continued, see her as a complication. Most people you meet must not be very interesting, Claire said before she could filter it. His head turned. Is that your professional opinion? It is my human opinion, she replied, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. He laughed, that real sound again, lighter this time. Be careful, he said. If you keep talking like that, I might start scheduling more courtyard lunches. That evening, as she was packing her laptop, an email popped up from his assistant. Subject: casual movie night. Message: Zoe has been asking if you would like to come over on Friday. Adrian insists I clarify that this is her idea, not a mandated team-building exercise. Claire stared at the screen, then at the rain cloud drawing on her desk. She could see herself reflected faintly in the glass of her office window. Hair, tired eyes, the skyline behind her. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed a response before she could talk herself out of it. I would love to. Tell Zoe thank you for the invitation. Friday came with heavier rain. It beat against the cab windows as she rode across town, city lights stretching in long lines on the wet roads. She had a small gift bag on the seat beside her. Inside was a thin book about women who had mapped the night sky and a pack of glow-in-the-dark constellation stickers she had found in a science store near her apartment. The driver pulled up in front of a glass and steel tower overlooking the water. The lobby was quiet, the air warm, smelling faintly of lemon and stone. Claire pressed the elevator button and rode up, feeling each floor click past in her chest. Adrian's apartment door opened before she could knock a second time. He wore jeans and a soft gray t-shirt, bare feet on the wood floor. The sight caught her off guard almost more than anything she had seen at work. He looked younger without the armor of a suit, but the line between his brows was still there. Hey, he said, you found it. I followed the trail of ridiculously nice cars, she said. He stepped aside to let her in. The penthouse had glass on 2 sides, the city spread out beneath them. The living room was all clean lines, neutral colors, but there were signs of real life threaded through it. A stack of graphic novels on the coffee table, a forgotten sock on the arm of the couch, a star projector on the media console. Zoe appeared from behind the couch socks, sliding slightly on the floor. Her hair was damp from a recent shower. She wore pajamas printed with tiny planets. You came, she said, as if she had assigned Claire a test and was relieved by the result. You invited me, Claire said. I do what the host says. Zoe eyed the gift bag. What is that, she asked. A bribe, Claire said, to make sure I get invited again. She knelt and handed the bag over. Zoe opened it carefully, peeling the tape instead of tearing it. She took out the book, first studied the cover for a full 10 seconds, then ran her finger over the face of one of the astronomers. They are all women, she said. Some of the best people who mapped the stars were, Claire said. Zoe nodded once, decisive approval, then pulled out the pack of stickers. Her eyes widened. Glow constellations, she said. We can make our own sky. She spun and ran down the hall with the stickers and book pressed to her chest. Adrian watched her go, then turned back to Claire. That was a perfect choice, he said. Thank you. She did most of the work, Claire said. She told me her thing is stars. She tells you a lot, he said. She does not do that with everyone. They ordered pizza. They watched an animated movie Zoe had already seen 3 times. She narrated under her breath, correcting scientific inaccuracies. At some point, Zoe disappeared down the hall, then called them in with the urgency of someone unveiling a masterpiece. The lights in her room were off. The only illumination came from the faint green glow on the ceiling and walls. She had already peeled and stuck half the constellations. Cassiopeia bent over one corner. Orion stretched over her bed. Between them, she had placed 3 bright stars and connected them with a careful line. That is us, Zoe said, pointing. Me, Dad, and Claire. Claire felt her chest tighten. Adrian stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his arm. It is a good sky, Claire said softly. After Zoe fell asleep under her artificial constellations, they left the door cracked and moved back to the living room. The movie credits had long ended. The pizza box sat open on the table, a single slice left. "Come see the view," Adrian said. He slid open the glass door to the balcony. The sound of rain grew louder, a steady patter on the metal railing. The city lights had softened with the weather reflection shimmering on the surface of the bay. They stood side by side, shoulders almost touching, watching the ferries move across the dark water, like slow-glowing insects. "You are good with her," Adrian said. Adrian said. "She makes it easy," Claire replied. "She tells you exactly what she thinks. Most adults do not," he said. "Including you," she added. He huffed a quiet breath. "I keep my cards close," he said. "Occupational hazard." "It is not just work," she said. "You build systems." "That is what you told me, to keep things from collapsing." He gripped those railing fingers tapping against the cold metal. "Making a wrong move has consequences," he said. "For me, for the company, for Zoe, we have a balance. It is not perfect, but it holds." "Do you ever want something that does not fit neatly into that balance?" she asked. He looked at her instead of the city. The balcony light caught the edge of his jaw, the faint stubble he had missed with his razor. Rain blew in sideways, cool against the side of her neck. "Every day," he said quietly. They were close enough now that she could see the small scar near his eyebrow, close enough that she could feel the shift in his breathing, slower, deeper. Her hand rested on the railing. His moved almost imperceptibly in her direction. The air between them changed, full of everything they were not saying. Then from inside a sharp sound cut through the quiet. A muffled cry, high and panicked. "Dad." Adrian's head snapped toward the hallway. The tension in his shoulders returned in an instant. "Nightmare," he said. "She has been having more lately." He stepped back from the railing, already reaching for the glass door. "Go," Claire said. "Of course." He hesitated just for a heartbeat, looking at her, as if there was something he wanted to add. The moment stretched, then snapped. "Thank you," he said, bided, and disappeared inside. Claire stayed on the balcony for a few seconds more. Rain misted across her face. The city moved below, indifferent, steady. She finally went back in, collected her bag, and let herself out without disturbing the closed door down the hall. The rain eased into a fine mist that Monday, the kind that hung in the air more than it fell. From the security office on the mezzanine level, the city looked like it had been wrapped in gauze. A bank of monitors lined one wall, each screen sliced into smaller frames. Halls, lobbies, elevator doors opening and closing, people in badge lanyards moving through their workday. Damien stood with his hands in his pockets watching the feeds flicker. The head of security clicked through camera angles, explaining a software update. Damien nodded, only half listening. His attention snagged on a frame from the 8th floor. In that square of moving pixels, the executive hallway stretched toward the corner office. Adrian walked slowly beside Claire, both holding paper cups, talking. The audio did not travel through the system, but their body language did. The easy tilt of Adrian's head, the way Claire's shoulders relaxed, the moment when they both laughed at something, and their reflections on the glass wall doubled the image. "Can you zoom that one?" Damien asked. The security head glanced at him, then obliged, tapping keys. The rectangle expanded, the figures sharpening. "That one is glitchy sometimes," the man said. "Old camera. We are replacing it next quarter." "It is fine," Damien replied. He watched the 30-second stretch in silence. Adrian and Claire reached her office door. She said something, smiling. Adrian's hand lifted as if he might touch her arm. Then he thought better of it and let it fall. He walked away toward his corner office. She went inside, the door closing behind her. The security head cleared his throat. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Just making sure the system is doing its job," Damien said. "Thank you for the walkthrough." He left before the man could offer another angle. On the executive floor, the glass caught his reflection as he stepped out of the stairwell. He straightened his tie and headed toward a smaller conference room, the one they used for what the calendar described as informal briefings. The board member waiting inside was a woman in her 60s, with sharp cheekbones and salt streaks in her dark hair. Eleanor Wu had made her fortune in early cloud infrastructure investments and now divided her time between a vineyard and a portfolio of companies she nudged from the sidelines. "Damien," she said, "I hear we are talking about risk." "Always," he replied, closing the door. They sat across from each other at a round table. No screens here, just a carafe of water and 2 glasses. The quiet hummed. "You asked for this meeting," she said. "You said there were concerns about Adrian." "Concerns is a strong word," Damien said. "Let us call it awareness. We are reaching a stage where founder behavior matters more than ever. The bigger we get, the more any single person's choices ripple out. Founders are always a risk," Eleanor said. "They think the company is them." Damien lifted one shoulder. In this case, he is not entirely wrong. Investors trust Adrian. Clients sign because of him. People stay because of him. That is exactly why we need to be careful when that pressure mixes with personal entanglements. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. Entanglements. You have seen the new HR director around, he said. Smart, sharp. The team likes her. Adrian does too, perhaps a little more than usual. He did not show his teeth when he smiled. He did not need to. The implication sat between them. If he is happy, is that a problem? She asked. Happy is not the issue, Damien said. Focus is. We are in the middle of expansion planning. Singapore is on the table. Complex negotiations. If his judgment even appears clouded, if it looks like internal policies do not apply to him, that gives everyone who is already nervous a reason to dig in their heels. And you are telling me this because you are worried about appearances, Eleanor said. I am telling you this because I want Novacor to outlast its founding story, Damien replied. We need a structure that does not fall apart if one person decides to chase something else, or someone. Their eyes held. Eleanor tapped a fingertip once against the table. Keep me posted, she said. In the weeks that followed, the air inside Novacor shifted in ways that did not show up on strategic roadmaps. It showed up instead in how conversations stopped a fraction too quickly when Claire walked into a room, in how people glanced from her to Adrian and back again inside glass-walled meetings as if tracking a line they could not quite see, in the way someone from finance chatting near the coffee machine said, "You know, the quickest route to influence is a seat next to the corner office," and then smiled too wide when he realized she had heard. She pretended she had not. She made a note in her mind anyway. Her days stayed full. She led listening sessions with teams that had not seen anyone from people in months. She sat with an engineer who had quietly kept 3 products afloat while others took credit. She drafted a new performance framework and argued for it in meetings that left her drained but stubborn. At the same time, her calendar began to shift in ways she did not control. First, a leadership sync she usually attended was moved, and her name was missing from the new invite. Then, an all-hands planning session for the Asia project was scheduled without her. When she asked about it, she heard the words "kept it small this time," and more of a financial deep dive more than once. One afternoon, she discovered that a working group she had helped assemble was now reporting through a different channel. Was there a change I missed? She asked a product lead in the hallway, keeping her tone neutral. He shifted one hand on his laptop strap. I think Damien wanted to streamline communication, he said. Fewer people in the loop. You know how it is. I know how it should be, she said. He gave her an apologetic half-smile and hurried away. From her office, she could see Adrian move through his day, a distant figure behind glass. Meetings blurred together. He was in motion constantly. When their paths crossed, it was often in transit. One evening, she stepped into the elevator just as he did. They were alone, the car humming softly as it began its slow descent. You missed the Singapore session, he said. I was not invited, she replied. He frowned. You were on the initial thread. And then I was not, she said. Which is fine if I am not supposed to be in those rooms. The elevator passed floor 10. The lights flickered once, then steadied. You are supposed to be in those rooms, he said. Then you might want to tell someone that, she said. Silence settled between them, heavier than the elevator itself. The numbers ticked down, 9, 8. He shifted as if choosing his next words carefully. People are watching, he said finally. The board, Damien, the leadership team. They are nervous about anything that looks like blurred lines. Right now, anything involving me and HR is a magnet for that. She let out a short breath. So this is about optics, she said. It is about timing, he answered. We are at a critical point. Singapore, the funding round, the product launch. If people start to think I am distracted, it gives them leverage. Against me, against the company. And against you, she said slowly, their leverage is me. His jaw tightened. That is not what I meant, he said. It is what you said, she replied. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened with a soft chime. Neither of them moved. Outside the glass entrance, the mist had thickened back into real rain, streaking the night. I am asking you to be careful, Adrian said quieter. With my calendar or with you, Claire asked. His eyes met hers. For a moment, she saw the flash of something that had nothing to do with board meetings or strategy decks. Then he tucked it away. Both, he said. She stepped past him into the lobby, the scent of wet concrete rising to meet her. Good night, Adrian, she said. He stayed in the elevator as the doors began to close again, his face framed by the metal. The next day, rumors thickened. Someone mentioned seeing her come out of Adrian's office after 8 in the evening. Someone else claimed they had heard laughter behind his closed door. A product manager she had always gotten along with stopped answering her messages as quickly. In a corner of the internal chat, A thread popped up titled Leadership Proximity. She saw it only because someone accidentally added her, then quickly removed her. For a second, one notification preview remained on her screen. Some people play the long game. Some just sit closer to the sun. She clicked away before she could see more. Later that week, she walked past a glassed-in conference room and paused. Through the transparent wall, she saw Damien at the head of the table, presenting to 3 board members. A slide on the screen behind him displayed a chart with lines of different colors labeled Revenue Growth Dependency. As he spoke, his hand moved in a clean arc across one of the lines. The one marked Founder Exposure. He caught sight of her in the glass. His eyes met hers for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled small and controlled and turned back to the room, his reflection overlapping with hers on the polished surface. By late March, the rain had settled into a rhythm that felt almost deliberate. Storm mist, a thin band of sunlight, then gray again. In the office, the shifts were less predictable. Claire noticed the Singapore references multiplying. They slipped into slide decks, a bullet point here, a map there, a line about time zones in a memo. Singapore was no longer just a word in strategy documents. It was a presence at the edge of every conversation about the future. One afternoon, she arrived at a conference room 10 minutes early for a leadership sync. The room was still warm from a previous meeting. The ghost of dry erase marker hung in the air. A presentation slide sat frozen on the screen. Regional HQ timeline, Q3 CEO, relocation confirmed, Q4 core leadership transition. Her name was nowhere on the diagram. Adrian's initials were. She stood in the doorway for 3 slow breaths. Then she walked in, set her notebook on the table, and touched the trackpad to wake the laptop connected to the screen. The slide advanced to the next one. A schematic of Singapore's skyline replaced the timeline. Lines traced from the city to dots labeled Tokyo, Sydney, Mumbai. Feet sounded in the hall. She let the laptop fall back to sleep and took her seat as people began to file in. The sync itself was uneventful. Product roadmaps, security updates, a brief note from finance about foreign currency exposure. No one mentioned relocations. No one said the word Singapore out loud. Afterward, as the room emptied, Adrian remained behind. "I need 5 minutes with Claire," he told his assistant, who hovered at the door with a tablet. "Can you push my next call?" His assistant nodded and vanished. Claire stacked her notebook, capped her pen, and waited. Adrian closed the door. The soft click sounded louder in the quiet room. "You saw the last deck," he said. "It was hard to miss," she replied. He pulled out a chair across from her and sat. The table between them felt wider than it had during the meeting. "Before you say anything," he began, "none of this is final. You have a quarter assigned to your relocation," she said. That looked final. "It is a placeholder," he said, "something the board wanted to see on a slide. I have not signed anything." She watched him. The reflected light from the glass wall fell across his face, flattening the lines of fatigue but not erasing them. "Have you told Zoe?" she asked. His fingers tapped once against the table, a small restless rhythm. "Not yet," he said. "Have you told your team?" "They know it is a possibility," he answered. "Have you told me?" she asked. His mouth tightened. He had no easy answer for that one. "We have talked about Singapore in passing," he said. "We have talked about a late-night call," she said. "Time zones, a project. You did not mention that Q3 on a slide has you in another country." "It is not decided," he said again. "There are a lot of moving pieces. And if all those pieces line up, you pack up your life and your kid and go," she said. He leaned back, folding his arms, as if he needed something to do with his hands that did not involve reaching across the table. "This is opportunity, Claire," he said, "for the company, for Zoe and me. It is a way to give her stability, a place where I can be close to our largest markets and still be home in time for dinner, instead of living in airports." "Stability," she repeated. The word tasted different in her mouth. "You have seen the travel schedules," he said. 3 continents in 2 weeks. That does not work forever. I can keep trying to hold everything together here, or I can build a base that makes sense for the next 10 years. "And you decided that without me," she said before she could soften it. "I have not decided," he said, sharper now. "Is it really that hard to believe that I am still weighing options? It is hard to believe I'm not even on the list of people you weigh them with," she said. Silence pressed in through the glass. Outside, clouds moved over the bay, dulling what little light had pushed through earlier. The city looked flatter, the colors drained. He looked at her across the table, eyes cool and tired. "This is not about you," he said. Something in her chest went still. "Of course," she said. "It is business. Expansion, founder exposure, I have heard the phrases." She reached for her pen more to have something in her hand than from any need to write. "You are twisting this," he said. "Am I?" she asked. Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you are making life-changing plans that affect your team, your daughter, and the people she has started to count on. But you cannot say the word relocation in a room with me until I stumble across it on a slide. His jaw worked. I am trying to protect you, he said quietly. From what she asked. From being perceived as an influence on that decision, he said. Damien is already whispering in ears. If the board thinks I am staying because of a personal relationship, it makes everything harder. If they think I am going or not going because of you, they will look at you like a liability. I will not have that. And how is freezing me out better? She asked. Because from where I sit, it just feels like distance. Like I am being repositioned from partner in conversations to someone who needs protecting from the truth. Her voice stayed even, but she could feel the tightness around her eyes. His gaze dropped to the tabletop, then lifted again. This started before you, he said. The Singapore talks, the strategy. None of that is about you. He sounded as if he was reassuring her. He sounded as if he did not hear the way the words slid under her skin. Thank you for the clarification, she said. Claire, he said, that is not what I meant. It is what you said, she answered. He pushed his chair back a few inches, then caught himself palms flat on the table as if anchoring. What do you want me to do? He asked. She thought of the balcony outside his apartment, the feel of rain on her face, the sound of Zoe calling from down the hall. She thought of the constellation stickers, 3 stars connected by a deliberate line. You do not owe me anything, she said. You have made that clear. That is not fair, he said. Life is not fair, she replied. She replied. You told me that yourself the day we talked about burnout. He winced slightly. He remembered. A knock on the glass broke the moment. His assistant stood outside holding a tablet and looking apologetic. Adrian, she said through the door, your call with Singapore is in 2 minutes. They are already on the line. He did not move right away. His eyes stayed on Claire. We are not finished, he said. We are for now, she answered. She gathered her notebook and pen and stood. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. At the door she paused with her hand on the handle. Next time there is a slide with your life on it, she said you might try telling the people already living in it. She opened the door before he could respond. The hallway was busy again. People carried laptops, phones pressed to their ears, conversations trailing off as they passed. Her reflection stretched along the glass, overlapping briefly with his as he moved to take his call. That evening, alone in her apartment, Claire sat at her small kitchen table, with her laptop open and a blank document on the screen. Job search, she typed at the top. Her fingers hesitated, then began to move. She did not have to send a resume anywhere that night. She did not have to make any sudden decisions. She just needed to see that there were other options, other cities where the rain meant something different. On her phone, a message from Adrian appeared. We should talk when things calm down. I do not want to leave it like that. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she turned the phone face down on the table and went back to the empty document. The white space more honest than anything she had seen on a slide all day. The night of the gala arrived with a hard, relentless rain that turned the streets into sheets of black glass. Claire watched the weather from her apartment window while she pinned one small silver earring into place. Her dress was simple deep blue that shifted almost to black in certain light. The fabric skimmed her frame without announcing itself. She had twisted her hair up, leaving a few strands loose at her neck. In the bathroom mirror, she looked like a slightly more polished version of herself, not a stranger. Her phone buzzed once on the counter, a calendar reminder. Novacor Global Strategy Celebration, the Regent Hotel, Grand Ballroom, 6:30 p.m. She slipped the phone into her clutch, pulled on her coat, and headed out into the wet evening. The Regent's entrance glowed against the dark, a spill of warm light and polished marble. Inside, the air smelled of perfume wine, and something buttery drifting from the kitchen. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, refracting light across a sea of suits and dresses. A towering wall of glass ran along one side of the ballroom. Beyond it, Seattle shimmered under rain. The city lights blurred and elongated as water slid down the panes. Claire checked her coat, accepted a glass of champagne from a passing tray, and let herself get swept a few steps into the room. She saw familiar faces immediately, engineers she had argued with about resourcing, product leads she had coached through hard conversations, board members she had nodded to in hallways. People who knew her as the woman who talked about burnout and boundaries in a company that worshipped velocity. Adrian stood near the far end of the room, flanked by investors. Tonight he was back in full armor. Dark suit, crisp white shirt tie, perfectly knotted. He listened as someone spoke, leaning in just enough to show he cared about the answer. He was good at that. It was part of why they trusted him with their money. His eyes lifted almost as if he felt her looking. For half a second across the distance and the shimmering crowd, their gazes met. Something in his expression shifted. Then one of the investors laughed and touched his arm. He turned back to the conversation. Careful, a voice near her said, "Stare too long at the sun and you will burn your retinas." Claire turned her head. Damien stood a few feet away, drink in hand. His tuxedo fit as if it had grown there. He looked entirely at home under the chandeliers. "Good evening," he said. "You clean up well, Claire." "Thank you," she replied. "You look exactly like I imagined." "Oh," his mouth curved. "And how is that?" "Like someone who knows which fork to use without looking," she said. He laughed quietly. His gaze traveled from her dress back to her face. "Blue suits you," he said. "The CEO seems to agree." She did not look toward Adrian. "I am sure he has more important things to focus on tonight." "He does," Damien said. "He always does. Market share, growth, that little relocation project of his." The word landed heavily. "Relocation," she repeated. "Singapore," Damien said, as if they were discussing the weather. "You have seen the decks." "I have seen a slide with Q3 and some arrows," she said. "I have not seen a signed contract." "For now," Damien said. "These things tend to accelerate once they hit the diligence stage. The board wants clarity, timelines, commitments." He sipped his drink, watching her quietly. "How committed are we talking?" she asked. "A few months, a year." "5," he said, "minimum." Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. "5 years," she said. "It is a regional headquarters role," he said. "You do not build that as a short-term vacation. He and Zoe relocate, they put down roots. Schools, community, all of it." She looked past him for a second at the city outside, softened in silver, behind rain-streaked glass. "And this is locked," she said, decided. "The board is enthusiastic," Damien said. "Adrian understands the opportunity. He is not blind. You know how he is. Once he commits, he follows through." She swallowed. Her throat felt dry despite the champagne. "That is his business," she said. "Of course," Damien said. "Unless someone here thought she might change his mind." Her eyes snapped back to his. "I am not sure what you are implying," she said. He smiled, small and neat. "We are adults," he said. "We can pretend that what happens in offices and courtyards and elevators is strictly professional, or we can acknowledge that human beings are involved. The board tends to prefer the former, at least on paper." "You spoke to the board about this," she said. "I speak to the board about everything that affects this company," he replied. "Founders, succession, perception. You are on their radar more than you think, Claire." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "A little advice," he said. "Do not let yourself become the story. Stories get controlled, then they get edited." Before she could respond, another voice joined them. Damien Adrian said, "I think the Helios group was looking for you. Something about term sheets." Damien turned, the smoothness never leaving his face. "I am sure they can survive a few minutes without me," he said. "We were just talking about Singapore." "Were you?" Adrian said. Ishti said. His jaw was faintly clenched. The champagne flute in his hand looked fragile. "Global strategy," Damien said. "Claire is an important part of the culture side. I would hate for her to feel left out of the excitement." He gave Claire a last polite nod and moved away into the crowd. For a moment, the noise of the ballroom sharpened around them. Cutlery clinked against plates. Someone at the bar told a loud joke. A string quartet in the corner shifted into a new piece. "Is it true?" Claire asked. Adrian's eyes came back to her. "Is what true?" he said quietly. 5 years, she said. "Relocation. You and Zoe in Singapore by Q3. He looked past her for a second, as if searching for a neutral point to rest his gaze. "It is not final," he said. "There are details to agree on." "That is not an answer," she said. "What do you want me to say?" he asked. "That I have no idea what I am doing, that I am making it up as I go. That would not inspire much confidence." "I want you to say the truth," she said, "whatever it is." He exhaled slowly. "The board and I have been discussing this for months," he said. "Yes, there is a plan for me to relocate. Yes, they want it soon. Yes, I have been acting as if that might happen." "And you did not think to tell me that directly," she said. "Outside of a slide, outside of a rumor, outside of your assistant scheduling midnight calls." "Claire," he said, "this is a company decision, a strategic move. I cannot weigh it like a personal choice." "You keep saying that," she said. "You keep insisting this has nothing to do with me. I am starting to believe you." He winced. "That is not fair," he said. "You know this started before you ever walked into that lobby." "I know that," she said. "I also know I walked into meetings, projects, dinner with your daughter Star, stickers on her ceiling. I did not walk into a 5-year vacancy." His voice dropped. "What would you have me do?" he asked. Turn down the opportunity that could stabilize this company for a decade because we shared a few late nights and some strong coffee. The words hung between them heavier than the chandeliers. She felt the ground shift under her. A few late nights, she repeated. That came out wrong, he said quickly. I did not mean to minimize. I am just trying to be realistic. You are being clear, she said. There is a difference. Her fingers had gone numb around the glass. She set it on a nearby tray before she dropped it. You have always been honest with me about risk, she said. Apparently I miscalculated where I was on your chart. He took a step closer, dropping his voice even lower. Claire, listen to me, he said. This is not about care or no care. It is about weight. Zoe deserves stability. The company needs a path forward. I cannot blow everything up because I am tempted by something new and uncertain. Something she said. Good to know that is the category. He flinched. That is not what I meant, he said. The thing is, she said, I do not think you know what you mean right now. I think you are so busy keeping your systems intact that you cannot admit anything that does not fit into them. Someone brushed past them, laughing too loudly at something unrelated. The sound snapped into their pocket of silence and faded. Congratulations on Singapore. She said, her voice was steady. Her stomach was not. I hope it gives you everything you are looking for. She turned before he could answer and moved through the crowd toward the exit. Her heart thudded in her ears. The room seemed brighter than it had when she entered the chandeliers too sharp. She did not stop to retrieve her coat. She only paused in the lobby long enough to press the elevator button. When the doors opened, she stepped inside and let them close her away from the music and the glass and the watchful eyes. Outside, the rain had turned fine again, almost a mist. It beaded on her bare arms as she walked the few blocks to where she could find a cab. Her dress darkened at the edges, her shoes soaked through. In the back seat of the car, she watched the hotel's lights recede. Her phone buzzed. A new email notification lit the screen. Helix Point Systems, follow up on our conversation. She opened it. Claire, it was a pleasure speaking with you last week. We were impressed with your experience and your approach to building sustainable culture in high-growth environments. We would like to formally extend an offer for the position of VP People and Organizational Development at Helix Point Systems. She read the rest of the message twice. Compensation, responsibilities. Start date flexible within the next 2 months. A note about how excited they were at the prospect of her leadership. Last week's call came back in fragments. The recruiter's calm voice, the feeling of possibility, the way she had almost apologized for taking the call until she stopped herself. The car crossed a bridge. Water moved silently beneath them, catching stray lights from the shore. By the time the driver pulled up in front of her building, her decision felt less like a leap and more like a step she had already been taking. She went upstairs, kicked off her wet shoes, and sat at her small kitchen table with the offer open on her laptop. The room was quiet. The only sound was rain ticking against the window. She hovered over the reply button for a long breath. Then she clicked. Thank you for the offer, she typed. I am pleased to accept. She read the sentence twice, then sent it. The message disappeared into the wired night. Her screen returned to its calm, neutral glow. Outside, the rain kept falling on glass and sidewalks, and on the tower where Novacore's logo glowed faintly through the mist. The Monday after the gala, the office lights felt harsher than usual. Claire sat at her desk with a blank email open on her screen. The cursor pulsed in the subject line. Resignation. The word looked too stark in that small box. She deleted it, typed, notice deleted that too, and finally settled on something neutral. Update. Her fingers rested on the keys. Her reflection hovered faintly in the dark lower frame of the window. The city outside was just waking up, cranes etched against the pale sky. For once it was not raining yet. The clouds hung heavy and waiting. She began to type. Adrian, I am writing to inform you that I have accepted a position at another company and will be resigning from my role as Director of People and Culture at Novacore Labs. Her hands did not hesitate once the words started to flow. She kept it simple. Professional, 2 weeks notice, a line about being grateful for the opportunity to work with the team, another about the transition documents she would prepare. She read it through once, then a second time. There were 100 things she was not saying. None of them belonged in an email. She added the HR contact to the recipient line, then hit send before she could talk herself into waiting for a better moment. The message left her outbox with a soft swoosh. Her screen shifted back to her inbox full of other people's priorities. She exhaled slowly and opened the folder labeled Helix. Offer letter, onboarding packet, a note from the recruiter saying how happy they were that she had accepted. A quiet knock sounded at her door. "Come in," she called. Marta from corporate HR stepped inside holding a tablet against her chest like a shield. "I just saw your email," Marta said. "Is this real, or did our system forward me a draft by mistake?" "It is real," Claire said. Marta's shoulders sagged. "I thought you might shake things up," she said. "In a good way. You have managed to annoy just the right people." "Apparently not enough of the right ones," Claire said. "Helix Point," Marta asked. Claire nodded. "They are lucky," Marta said. "We will schedule an exit interview, but I wanted to check in first, human to human. Is there anything we can do to change your mind?" Claire thought of the slide with Q3 relocation, the ballroom, the word few, the way her name had disappeared from meeting invites. "No," she said gently. "I appreciate you asking." Marta studied her for a moment. "Adrian will not like this," she said. "That is between Adrian and his board," Claire said. "And Singapore." Marta gave a small wry smile. "I will get the paperwork started," she said. "If you need a reference from someone who does not answer to the corner office, you know where to find me." "Thank you," Claire said. When Marta left the room, felt both emptier and lighter. She spent the next few hours doing what she did best. She made lists, she documented processes, she drafted notes for her team leads outlining how to keep ongoing projects from collapsing when she stepped away. By late morning, she had filled a page in her notebook with names and arrows setting down ways to make her exit cause as little damage as possible. On the other side of the floor, in a larger conference room, with better coffee and worse air, Adrian sat at the head of a long table, while a strategist walked through a set of slides about international tax implications. He heard the words, but did not absorb them. His mind kept skipping ahead to the call with Singapore later that evening, the way time differences had carved little notches out of his days. A notification pulsed at the corner of his laptop screen. He ignored it at first. Then it flashed again. HR leadership transitions. He clicked it open more out of habit than interest as the presenter droned on about compliance. A list filled the window. Updates. A director in marketing shifting roles. A manager in security promoted. One line stopped his eyes. Director of People and Culture resignation, received effective 2 weeks from today. Accepted new role at Helix Point Systems. The room noise dimmed. The strategist's voice turned into a muffled hum. "Adrian," someone said, "we would like your view on the last scenario." He blinked, forcing his focus back to the table. "Send me the deck," he said. "I will go through it and send notes." "We were hoping to align now," Damien said from halfway down the table. Later, Adrian said sharper than he intended. Chairs shifted. A few people exchanged quick glances. Adrian closed his laptop. "I need to step out for a moment," he said. "Continue without me." He left the room without waiting for a response. The executive hallway felt too narrow as he walked at each pane of glass, catching his reflection and throwing it back at him in brief flashes. His steps carried him to Claire's office almost on their own. He did not knock. He opened the door and closed it behind him before the sound of the hallway could follow him inside. "You are quitting," he said. Claire looked up from the open box on her desk. She had been in the middle of placing a stack of books inside, her hands stilled around the edges of the cardboard. "Good morning," she said calmly. "You accepted a role at Helix Point," he continued, "our largest domestic competitor." "They made an offer," she said. "I said yes." He took a step toward the desk as if proximity might change the fact. "When were you planning to tell me?" he asked. "I just did," she said. His jaw tightened. "Through an HR notice and an email carbon copy," he said. "You did not think this warranted a direct conversation." "I thought we covered our direct conversations at the gala," she said, "in between the champagne and the relocation plans." "That is not the same," he said. "I know," she said. "There you talked about uprooting your life without including me. Here I am talking about mine without including you." It seemed balanced. He flinched at that barely. "Helix Point is not just any company," he said. "They are a rival. They watch our moves, undercut our bids. You know that." "I am aware," she said. "They also listen when I talk about burnout and systems and people not being disposable. They asked what I would need to build something sustainable, and then did not laugh." He took in the box on her desk, the neatly stacked files ready for sorting, the rain cloud drawing still propped against her monitor. "This is because of me," he said. It was not a question. She set a book down with more force than necessary. "Not everything is about you, Adrian," she said. "Claire," he began. She cut him off. "Do you really think my entire career pivots on your decisions?" she said. "That I would stay or go based only on what you do or do not do with your life? You are important. You are not the only variable." He inhaled slowly as if he were counting internally. "The timing is interesting," he said. "You accept an offer from our closest competitor days after you hear about Singapore. You send your notice without speaking to me. I am not sure what conclusions you expect me to draw. I expect you to draw whichever ones fit your existing narrative, she said. You do not need my help with that. You are angry, he said. Very observant, she said. You could have used that skill when there was still room to talk about any of this. He stepped closer, resting his hands on the edge of her desk. I am trying to understand, he said. We have built something here. You have. You have barely started. You fought for policies no one else believed we needed. You made people feel seen, and now you are walking away. For what? A fresh logo on your laptop. She closed the box lid and pressed it down. I am walking towards something, she said. There is a difference. He watched her for a beat. 3 weeks, he said. That is when I am supposed to leave for Singapore. You choose now to move to Helix Point. It is a coincidence. What does it matter, she asked. It matters, he said, because I need to know if I am pushing you out. She let her hands fall to her sides. You are not that powerful, she said. Her tone softened slightly. You are one of the reasons I stayed this long. You are also one of the reasons I know I have to go. He swallowed. The line between his brows deepened. I do not want you to go, he said quietly. Her chest tightened, but she did not let the feeling reach her face. You also do not want to stay, she said. At least not enough to say it out loud to the people it would affect. You cannot have it both ways. The room held a long silence. Finally, he straightened, fingers curling once against the desk. Good luck at Helix Point, he said. His voice was formal again, the one he used on calls with distant partners. Take care of Zoe, she said. His eyes flickered at his daughter's name. She is special, Claire said. Even when she is telling you things you do not want to hear. Something in his expression cracked, then only for a moment. Then he gathered himself. Goodbye, Claire, he said. She did not trust herself to answer. He left the office, the soft click of the door almost gentle. The rest of the day moved around her in disconnected pieces. She answered emails. People stopped by when the news reached them. Some hugged her, some looked confused. A few asked if it was because of something they had done. She reassured them where she could. She did not mention Singapore. She did not mention the word few. In the evening, rain finally arrived. It came in a sudden burst, drumming against the windows, streaking the view into blurred lines of light. On the other side of the city, Adrian stood in the doorway of Zoe's room. The glow in the room was softer than usual. The star stickers on the ceiling were dimmer. One corner above the bed was bare, where a cluster had been peeled away, leaving faint outlines on the paint. Zoe lay on her side, back to the door, knees drawn up. Her sky journal was open on the nightstand, a pen resting diagonally across the page. Lights out, he said gently. We have school in the morning. I know, she said. Her voice was small words muffled by the pillow. He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. You did not turn on the projector, he said. Too bright, she said. He looked up at the ceiling. The absence where the stickers had been bothered him more than the ones that still glowed. What happened here? He asked, nodding toward the blank patch. Wrong pattern, she said. It does not work anymore. He reached for the journal on the nightstand. The current page held a drawing of 3 figures under a sky full of stars. A man, a girl, a woman with hair like falling lines. He had seen versions of this drawing before. This one was torn straight through the middle. The side with the woman was ripped away. Only the man and the girl remained, the torn edge jagged above them. A tightness he had been ignoring in his chest pulled harder. When did you do this? He asked. Today, she said. Why? He asked it softly. Because she is leaving, Zoe said into the pillow. He closed his eyes for a moment. Who told you that? He asked. Adults think walls keep sound inside, Zoe said. They do not. Doors are thin. People type loud. He smoothed a hand over her blanket. We will be all right, he said. You and me. You keep saying that, she said. You keep changing the picture. He had no answer for that. Try to sleep, he said. We can talk more. Semi said we can talk more tomorrow. He left the journal open on the nightstand, the torn drawing face up. In the living room, the city spread out behind the glass wall. Rain traced paths down the panes, each drop catching fragments of neon and white. Adrian stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, watching the distorted lights move. Reflected in the glass, he saw his own outline, and faintly beside it, the ghost of another shape that was no longer there. 2 days passed in a blur of lists and boxes. Claire's office grew barer with each trip she made to the recycling bin. The rain cloud drawing came down last. She slipped it into her bag with an odd sense of ceremony. At home, her small apartment turned into a halfway space. One suitcase open on the floor, a cardboard box near the door with things she might donate if she decided not to take them across town. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table. Helix Point onboarding materials glowing against the gray afternoon outside. It was a Saturday, the kind of Seattle day where the sky never quite committed to rain. The clouds sat low, heavy, and undecided. Light seeped through them like water through fabric. She had just closed a document outlining her first 90 days at Helix Point when someone knocked on her door. It was not the sharp, efficient knock of a delivery person. It was 3 uneven beats, then a pause, then one more. She frowned and wiped her hands on her jeans as she crossed the room. When she opened the door, she had to look down. "Hi," Zoe said. She stood in the hallway in a rain jacket that was zipped almost up to her chin. The sleeves were slightly too short. Her ponytail was crooked. A backpack hung from one shoulder. Her cheeks were pink from the climb up the stairs. For a second, Claire's brain refused to process the image. "Zoe," she said, "where is your dad?" "At home," Zoe said. "He does not know I am here." Claire's stomach dropped. "How did you get here?" she asked. "I ordered a car," Zoe said, "from his phone." "You what?" "I know his passcode," Zoe said. "He thinks I do not." Adults underestimate peripheral vision. Claire glanced past her down the hallway, as if Adrian might appear out of thin air. "Okay," she said, stepping back. "Come inside, quickly." Zoe obeyed, brushing past her, with the solemnity of someone crossing a border. Claire closed the door and locked it, then crouched so she and Zoe were at eye level. "First," she said, "you are safe here. Second, your dad is going to be terrified when he finds out you are not at home." "He already is," Zoe said. He said calmly, "That is why I came." Claire straightened and grabbed her phone from the table. Adrian answered on the first ring. "Claire," he said. His voice was tight, already frayed. "Is she there?" "She is," Claire said. "She is safe. She showed up at my door 5 minutes ago." Air rushed out of him in a sound that was not quite a word. "I turned around for 1 second," he said. 1 second and she was gone. Her backpack was gone. My phone was on the counter, and then it was not. "I have been calling everyone. I called her school, your office, Marta. I was about to call the police." "She took a car," Claire said. "She used your phone. She says she knows your passcode." He swore softly under his breath. "Of course she does," he said. "Of course. I am on my way. Do not let her out of your sight." "I will not," Claire said. "Text me your exact address." "Address," he said. "And Claire." "Yes," she said. "Thank you," he said. The line went dead. Claire lowered the phone. Zoe stood in the middle of the room, still wearing her backpack, watching her. "Your dad is coming," Claire said. "He was very worried." "He is always worried," Zoe said. "That is part of the problem." Claire managed a small smile. "Take your jacket off," she said. "You can sit on the couch while we wait." Zoe shrugged out of the raincoat and dropped her backpack by the coffee table. She sat with her feet tucked under her hands, folded in her lap, eyes scanning the room as if she were taking inventory. "You live in a small box," she observed. "It is called an apartment," Claire said. "It is cozy." "There is not much sky," Zoe said, looking at the single window that faced the alley. "Less light pollution," Claire said. "Better for stars." "Not tonight," Zoe said. "Too many clouds." She spoke as if she had checked. Claire sat in the chair across from her. "Why did you come here, Zoe?" she asked. "Really?" Zoe looked at her as if she had asked why water was wet. "Because you broke the picture," she said. "The picture," Claire repeated. "The picture in Dad's head," Zoe said. "And mine. You left. He is pretending it is fine. It is not fine." Claire rested her elbows on her knees, fingers laced together. "Zoe," she said gently, "I did not leave because of you." "I know," Zoe said. "You would not do that. You are not like Mom." Claire blinked. "I left for a job that is better for me," she said. "Different company, different problems to solve. Adults do that sometimes." Zoe shook her head. "Adults say that," she said. "It is not the only reason. Dad has been sad. He thinks I do not hear him at night, but I do. He stands in the kitchen and stares out the window and does not drink his tea before it gets cold." A muscle in Claire's jaw tightened. "He will be okay," she said. "No," Zoe said. "He will be in Singapore." The word sat between them like something dropped on the floor. "And you do not want to go," Claire said. Zoe's mouth twisted. "I do not want to start over again," she said. "New school, new sky, new everything. I can learn. I always learn. That is not the point." "What is the point?" Claire asked quietly. "The point is he does not want to go either," Zoe said. "He keeps saying stability like it is a magic spell. If you say it enough, maybe your heart believes it." The phrasing was so exact that Claire could hear Adrian in it. "Did he tell you that?" she asked. "He tells the window," Zoe said, "and the sink, and the cup. He thinks objects are safer than people. Sometimes the cup does not want to hear it either." Claire could picture him in that kitchen, hands braced on the counter, the city beyond the glass. "Zoe," She said there are things happening with the company and his job that are complicated. It is not as simple as just staying because you want to. Yes, it is, Zoe said. You either stay or you go. You either love someone or you do not. Space is complicated. Love is not. Claire sat back. For a moment, she felt much older than her 32 years. For another moment, she felt 10. Adult relationships are more complicated than that, she said. No, Zoe said. Adults are more complicated than that. The relationships would be fine if they stopped lying to themselves. Claire opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed weakly. You are very direct, she said. You told Dad that is your favorite thing about me, Zoe said. On the balcony, when you thought I could not hear. Heat rose in Claire's face. You were supposed to be asleep, she said. Sleep is overrated, Zoe said. There was a pause. A car went by outside, tires hissing on damp asphalt. Somewhere in another apartment, a blender started up Word, then stopped. Zoe reached for the zipper of her backpack and pulled it open. She took out her sky journal, the cover worn at the edges. I made something, she said. For you. She flipped to a page near the middle and tore it out carefully along the spiral. Then she crossed the small space between them and held the page out. Claire took it. The drawing showed 3 circles each on its own orbit intersecting in the center. Around them, star clusters floated. Above the 3 orbits, Zoe had drawn a single large umbrella, its curve sheltering the overlapping space. She had labeled the circles in small, careful letters. Me, Dad, Claire. The shared center was shaded darker, as if she had gone over it several times. What do you call this? Claire asked. Orbit map, Zoe said. Where things belong, even if they pretend they are going somewhere else. Claire's fingers brushed the roughness of the paper, where the pencil had pressed hard. Her vision blurred for a second. She blinked it clear. Thank you, she said. Her voice came out softer than she intended. Before Zoe could answer, someone knocked on the door. This time the sound was loud, frantic. Claire, Adrian called. It is me. Zoe's shoulders stiffened, then squared. She crossed back to the couch and sat down, spine straight. Claire went to the door and opened it. Adrian stood in the hallway, damp hair sticking up in odd directions, as if he had run his hands through it repeatedly. His eyes were too bright, a little wild. He wore the same Henley shirt he had on the night he found Zoe gone. The fabric wrinkled as if he had pulled it from a chair instead of a drawer. He exhaled when he saw Zoe. Thank God, he said. He stepped into the apartment and dropped to a crouch in front of his daughter. You cannot do that, he said. His hands hovered, then settled lightly on her arms. You cannot just disappear. I did not disappear, Zoe said. I changed location. You did not tell me, he said. You did not tell anyone. I thought something had happened. I thought I had lost you. You did, Zoe said. A little bit. When you decided to leave without asking us. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, looking as if he had aged a year since he arrived. We are not doing this here, he said softly. We will talk at home. He stood and glanced at Claire. I am sorry, he said. She never should have dragged you into this. She did not drag me, Claire said. She knocked. I opened the door. She is never a bother, she added. Not to me. Something in his posture softened, then tensed again. I appreciate you calling, he said, and keeping her safe. She is more capable than you think, Claire said. I know how capable she is, he said. That is what scares me. He reached for Zoe's backpack. Come on, he said. We are going home. Zoe stood, but before she followed him to the door, she turned back to Claire. She stepped close and wrapped her arms briefly around Claire's waist, a fast, fierce hug that surprised them both. I am not giving up, Zoe said against her shirt. Claire looped an arm around her shoulders. Neither am I, Claire said, even though she was not entirely sure what that meant. Zoe pulled back and pointed at the orbit map still in Claire's hand. Do not throw that away, she said. Paper remembers. I will not, Claire said. Zoe nodded once as if a decision had been made. They moved toward the door. Adrian paused on the threshold. Thank you, he said again. His eyes flicked to the drawing, then back to her face. For a moment there was nothing between them but tiredness and something rawer than either of them wanted to name. Be careful, he said. You too, she replied. My body's a soul. He led Zoe down the hallway. The sound of their footsteps faded on the stairs. Claire closed the door slowly. For a long time she stood in the middle of the small room, the drawing in one hand, her phone in the other. The apartment felt both crowded and empty, full of the echo of their voices in the silence that followed. She finally moved to the table and set the orbit map down beside her laptop. The umbrella hovered over the 3 circles, pencil lines dark and stubborn. Outside, the sky finally gave in. Rain began in earnest, tapping at the window in a steady, insistent rhythm. Claire folded her arms on the table and rested her forehead against them for a moment. Her chest ached in a way no spreadsheet or transition plan could organize. When she lifted her head, again the drawing was still there. She reached for it, smoothing the page with her palm, and did the only thing she could think of in that moment. She placed it on her nightstand, propped against the lamp, where it would be the first thing she saw in the morning, and the last thing she registered before she closed her eyes. The night before Adrian's flight, the city felt restless. Claire lay in bed, staring at the faint glow of the digital clock on her nightstand. The numbers changed without sound, ticking away toward a morning she could not seem to reach. Beside the clock propped against the lamp, Zoe's orbit map waited. 3 circles, 3 names, 1 umbrella arched over the shaded center. She had tried to be practical. She had packed another box. She had checked her first week schedule at Helix Point. She had even run a load of laundry. None of it quieted the echo of Zoe's voice. Space is complicated. Love is not. Rain began in soft taps against the window, building slowly into a steady patter. The sound usually calmed her. Tonight it made her chest feel tight. If he leaves and I say nothing, that is a choice, she thought. If he leaves and I have been honest, that is another. The idea of doing nothing sat wrong in her bones. She swung her legs out of bed and stood. The room was cool under her bare feet. She grabbed jeans, a sweater, the first jacket she could find. She slipped her feet into boots without turning on the light. Her hand hovered over the orbit map for a second. Then she picked it up and slid it gently into her bag. The streets were slick with rain and the orange sheen of streetlights when she pulled out of the parking lot. Traffic was thin. A few cabs, a delivery truck. The city towers rose ahead of her, their windows lit in uneven patterns. Novacor's logo glowed faintly near the top of its building, a blue shape against the low clouds. Inside the lobby, the fluorescent lights were turned down to half strength. The night security guard looked up from his desk as she came in, eyebrows lifting. "Burning the midnight oil, Ms. Bennett," he said. "Just tying up a loose end," she replied. He glanced at the clock. "Your badge still works," he said. "Nobody flipped the switch yet?" "Good to know," she said. The elevator ride seemed slower at night. The car hummed through each floor with a low vibration she could feel through the soles of her boots. At 16, her ears popped gently. At 20, a soft ding announced the executive level. The door slid open to the familiar quiet. Most of the offices were dark. A few screens glowed pale blue, forgotten monitors left on sleep mode. The carpet muffled her footsteps as she walked down the hallway lined with glass. Adrian's office light was on. From a distance, she could see his silhouette bent over the desk. As she came closer, the shape sharpened. His jacket was folded over the back of a chair. His shirt sleeves were rolled neatly to his elbows. A single lamp cast a warm circle across the surface of the desk, leaving the edges of the room in shadow. He was not moving. His pen hung above a document, the tip suspended just above the page. She stopped outside the door. The print on the top sheet was familiar even from here. Singapore Transition Agreement. Her hand found the door handle. The metal was cool under her palm. She could hear her own heart too loud in the quiet corridor and the soft tick of the clock on the wall inside his office. For a moment, she just stood watching him through the glass. The weight of the last 3 months pressed in behind her eyes and under her ribs. Then she knocked once. His head came up fast. He blinked as if he had been very far away and had to climb back. "Come in," he called. She opened the door. The lamplight slid across her as she stepped inside, bringing the damp sheen of rain on her hair and the chill of the hallway air. "Claire," he said. Her name came out as an exhale, half surprise, half something else. He straightened slowly in his chair. His pen was still in his hand. The contract lay open in front of him like an accusation. "You should not sign that," she said. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. He looked down at the document, then back at her. "What are you doing here?" he asked. His tone was soft, not sharp. She let the door close behind her. The latch clicked into place with a small final sound. "I tried to sleep," she said. "I could not. Tomorrow you could be on a plane. Next week, you could be in a different hemisphere. I could wake up and realize I never actually said the thing that kept me awake." He watched her with that careful stillness she had come to recognize the way he held himself when he was trying not to influence the outcome of something important. She moved closer to the desk, stopping on the other side. "The easy thing," she said, "would be to say nothing, to let you go and tell myself that this was all timing and circumstance and corporate strategy, to tell myself it is cleaner that way." She shook her head once. "It is not true, though," she said, "not all of it." The lamplight caught a drop of water on the edge of her jaw. It slid down slowly toward the collar of her sweater. "In the last few months," she said, "I took a job, built a team, fought for policies, annoyed half the leadership. All of that matters. I am proud of it. I am looking forward to what comes next at Helix." His eyes tightened slightly at that. But somewhere in there, she continued, between the coffee machine and the courtyard and your kitchen and Zoe's ceiling, something else happened. I started rearranging my own orbit without admitting it. Her hand slipped into her bag. She pulled out Zoe's drawing and laid it gently on the desk just above the contract. Me, Dad, Claire, one umbrella drawn over the center. I know she is a child, Claire said. I know paper is not a contract, but when she handed this to me, it felt more honest than any slide deck I have seen in this building. He looked down at the page. His throat moved once. Claire, he said. She cut in softly. Let me finish. He fell quiet. I like you, she said. More than I planned to. More than is convenient. I like the way you try to hold everything together. I like the way you remember the names of people's kids. I like that you carry a star projector in your jacket because it helps your daughter breathe in elevators. A faint, unwilling smile tugged at his mouth. It faded quickly, but it was there. I like that you pretend to be this rational, controlled machine, while you are the same man who stood in his own kitchen and cried over the sink when he thought no one could hear, she said. His eyes flicked up sharply. Zoe hears more than you think, she said. So do I. She drew a breath. I love you, she said. The words were simple, but they rang in the room. They hung there next to the tick of the clock and the distant murmur of rain against glass. I love you, she repeated more quietly. I love the way you look at Zoe, like she is the center of every plan, even when you are talking about expansion and risk and charts. I love that your first instinct when anything goes wrong is to protect other people before yourself. I love both of you, not as an idea, as you are. He closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again. This is not fair, he said softly. I am not trying to trap you, she said. I am trying to be honest. If you do not feel the same way, if Singapore is the right move for you and for Zoe, then I will walk out of here, go to Helix, and not look back. You will go build your regional headquarters. We will both hurt for a while, and then we will both be fine. But at least I will know I did not keep this locked in my throat. His hand, the one holding the pen, trembled just slightly. For a long moment, the only sounds were the rain and the clock and the soft hum of the building's systems. Finally, he set the pen down. He pushed his chair back and stood. The movement felt slow, deliberate, like someone wading through deeper water than they expected. He came around the desk until they were standing on the same side, the contract at their backs and the city in front of them, through the glass. Damien built Singapore, he said. She frowned. I know he worked on the strategy. No, Adrian said. He built it for me, or rather for himself. He leaned his hip against the edge of the desk, as if he needed something solid behind him. He has been talking to the board for a year, he said, about founder risk, about concentration of power, about how dangerous it is to have so much tied to one person. He is not wrong. That is what made it easy to listen. Claire stayed still, watching his face. He used the numbers Adrian said. Every dip in a chart became proof that we needed a new structure. Every flight I took became evidence that I was stretched too thin. When you arrived, he saw the way we talked in hallways, the way Zoe gravitated to you. He did not like it. A distracted founder is easier to move. A founder in another country is easier to replace. He reached for a folder at the edge of the desk, opened it, and pulled out a stack of papers. Emails printed in black and white, camera stills, snippets of chat logs. I started digging. When the Singapore offer got specific, he said, I found edited footage from lobby cameras, conversations taken out of context, messages to board members about how I was letting personal entanglements cloud my judgment. He flipped one page around so she could see the grainy image of herself and him in the 8th floor hallway mid-laugh. He turned this into a story about your influence, Adrian said, so that anything I did with you near me would look suspect. If I stayed, it would be because of you. If I left, it would be because of the company. He wanted to control the narrative either way. Claire felt a cold flush wash over her skin. And you were just going to go, she said. I was considering it, he said. Not because I wanted to make Damien happy, because it seemed like the safe option. Fewer fights with the board, fewer messy questions, a stable base for Zoe, a way to keep the company intact even if it meant carving myself out of this city. He looked past her shoulder at the rain-streaked skyline. She is right, you know, he said. Who? Claire asked. Zoe, he said. Stability does not look very stable when you are crying into your tea at 2 a.m. His laugh was brief and humorless. I have tried to build systems my whole life, he said. Workflows, routines, schedules. They make sense. They are predictable. Feelings are not. So I minimized them. I told myself I did not have time. that Zoe had already lost enough, so the responsible thing was to lock everything else down. He turned back to her. Then you walked into our lobby with rain in your hair and told my daughter I had mislabeled Cassiopeia, he said. You laughed at my worst habits and refused to be impressed by the things everyone else pretends to be impressed by. You made Zoe feel seen without trying to fix her. You made my world bigger in ways I did not plan for. He stepped closer. There was a space between them that felt as careful as the distance on a narrow bridge. You ask if I feel the same way, he said. I do. The words landed with a weight that felt both heavy and light. I love you, he said. Not because it is convenient, not because it fits on a slide, because when I imagine the next 5 years, the only version that makes sense has you and Zoe in it, not in different cities, not as a regret. Here. Her breath left her slowly. Then do not sign, she said. He looked down at the contract, then at Zoe's orbit map lying just above it. Singapore will still exist tomorrow, he said, and the day after. He picked up the agreement, held it for a moment, then tore it neatly in half. The sound of paper splitting cut through the quiet. He ripped the halves again, smaller pieces falling onto the polished floor like thick confetti. Claire watched, hardly daring to move. Damien will not like this, she said. Damien can answer for his choices, Adrian said. I will answer for mine. The board needs a story. I will give them one that does not involve sacrificing my daughter's life or yours to keep them comfortable. He turned back to her, breathing a little faster. Staying will be hard, he said. Fighting him. Rebuilding trust. Sharing power properly this time. Being a father and a CEO who is not constantly choosing one over the other. Being someone who deserves what you just said to me. She stepped closer until there was no careful bridge, only a shared piece of floor. I am not asking for easy, she said. I am asking for real. His hand lifted, hesitated, then tucked a damp strand of hair behind her ear. What I want, he said, voice low as standing in front of me. She placed her hands against his chest. His heart beat hard under her fingers. Tell me I am not too late, she said. Instead of answering with words, he leaned in and kissed her. It was not tentative. It was not careful. It was the kind of kiss that carried all the sentences they had left unfinished. Coffee and rain and fear and relief all pressed into the space where their mouths met. Her hands curled into his shirt. His fingers slid to the back of her neck. The lamplight blurred. The city outside disappeared for a moment. When they finally drew back, foreheads resting together, both of them were breathing unevenly. It is not too late, he said quietly. It never was. I was just slow. She laughed, once a shaky sound. What about Zoe, she asked. She told her teacher she was not moving, Adrian said. Apparently, she also mentioned you might be her new mom. I got that email yesterday. Claire's eyes widened. She what? Before he could respond, someone knocked in a frantic rhythm on the door. Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry, she insisted on coming up. A woman's voice called, flustered. Adrian and Claire stepped apart, not fast enough to fool anyone who had eyes. Come in, he said. The door opened. Zoe rushed in, her babysitter hovering behind her rain jacket dripping on the carpet. I told you to wait in the lobby, Adrian said, but there was more relief than reprimand in his tone. You were not coming down, Zoe said. You said you had to finish something. Her gaze moved from his face to Claire's, then to the torn pieces of paper on the floor. Her eyes widened. Did you fix it? She asked. Claire knelt so she and Zoe were level. We are working on it, she said, together. Zoe studied her, then looked at Adrian. You are staying, Zoe said. It was not a question. Yes, he said. If the board lets me, and even if they make it painful first, this is our home. Zoe's shoulders lowered in a visible release. I told Ms. Parker I was not moving, she said. I told her Claire was going to be my new mom instead, and that you were being slow. Claire's breath caught. Adrian's expression softened into something almost unbearably tender. That is a lot of information to give your teacher, he said. She asked why I was not doing my Singapore project, Zoe replied. He huffed a small laugh and shook his head. We will talk about boundaries, he said. Tomorrow. He glanced at the babysitter. Thank you for bringing her up, he said. You can head home. I will take it from here. The babysitter nodded, clearly relieved, and slipped out, closing the door. Zoe moved closer to Claire and slid her hand into hers without ceremony. So, she said, are we a system now? Claire squeezed her fingers. We can be, she said, if you want to. I already did, Zoe said. I drew it. She glanced at the desk, saw the orbit map still lying there, and smiled. Adrian watched them, something in his face easing that had not eased in a long time. For the first time in months, the glass wall behind him did not feel like a barrier. It felt like a window inside a room that finally belonged to the people standing in it. 6 months later, the boardroom felt different. The same long table, The same city spread beyond glass, only now the sky was clear and sharp, the bay a bright band of blue instead of steel. The motto on the wall caught the morning light: "Build what lasts." Claire sat halfway down the table. She had a notebook open, pin resting across the top. Her badge still said Director of People and Culture. Helix Point's logo existed only in a folder of archived emails. At the head of the table, Adrian stood beside a screen. "Last item," he said. "Internal governance." The board members shifted in their chairs. Some checked their phones, then set them face down again. Eleanor Wu folded her hands, eyes steady on him. Adrian clicked a button. The first slide was not a chart. It was a still frame from a security camera. Grainy black and white, the lobby rendered in high contrast. Adrian and Claire appeared in the frame mid-step, talking near the reception desk. In the corner, a timestamp and camera-eye blinked. 6 months ago, Adrian said this image was used to support the idea that I was no longer capable of objective leadership. He clicked again. The image zoomed in, then split. One side held the original frame. The other held an edited version, angle slightly shifted, timestamp missing. "The second version is what some of you saw," he said, "presented without context as evidence of inappropriate influence." A murmur moved around the table. Eleanor's gaze slid to Damien, seated further down. His face remained carefully neutral. "This is one example," Adrian said. "There are others. Selected emails, half transcripts, narratives about founder volatility and entanglements that did not match reality." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He moved through what he had found. Internal messages misrepresented. Suggestions to the board framed as neutrally concerned notes while carrying a consistent direction. Some of those concerns were valid, Adrian said. Founder risk is real. So is burnout at the top. I take responsibility for the parts that are mine. I do not accept having my choices or my team used as leverage in a campaign built on manipulated information. He stopped in front of the motto on the wall and rested his hand lightly on the edge of the table. "If we say we build what lasts," he said, "we cannot do it by eroding trust from the inside." Silence followed, heavier than any applause. Eleanor broke it. "Damien," she said, "do you have anything you would like to add?" Damien's jaw flexed once. "My intention has always been to protect this company," he said. "Sometimes that requires hard truths and harder tactics." "Protecting the company is not the same as positioning yourself to replace its founder," Eleanor said. Her voice was calm. It made the sentence cut deeper. A vote was not dramatic. It was a series of nods, a few firm sentences, emotion carried. In the end, Damien rose, adjusted his cuffs, and left the room, with his shoulders still straight, his expression unchanged. The door clicked shut behind him. After the meeting, the board members scattered, calls to make, flights to catch. Eleanor lingered near the window, looking out at the water. Claire closed her notebook and stepped into the hall. Adrian joined her a moment later. The exhaustion on his face was clear, but there was something else under it now. Space. "You could have left," Eleanor said when he approached. "Singapore would have been easier." "Maybe," Adrian said. "For a while." She studied him. "Are you sure you want to stay in this particular storm?" she asked. He glanced past her at the view. The sky was bright, but out over the bay a small line of clouds was already forming. "Yes," he said, "I am." "Then share the umbrella," she said. She nodded once to Claire, a quiet acknowledgement, and walked away down the hall. Adrian watched her go, then turned to Claire. "You did not have to sit through that," he said. "I did," she said. "I live here too." He smiled, a small, tired curve. "I am glad you stayed," he said. "Me too," she answered. "Helix will survive without me." "Zoe would not," he said. His hand brushed lightly against hers, just once, before he stepped back. There were still people in the hallway. There were still lines they chose to keep for now. Outside, beyond the glass, summer was finally edging into Seattle. The company picnic took place in July in a park that sat between the city and the water. The grass was thick and uneven. The air smelled of grills and sunscreen and lake. Novacore's logo fluttered on a banner tied between two trees. Nearby, a bounce house sagged and reinflated with every scream of laughter. Music drifted from portable speakers, mixing with the slap of a volleyball and the squeak of a cooler lid. Claire sat on a blanket with Zoe, a paper plate of food balanced on her knees. The sun pressed against the top of her head, warm and unfamiliar after months of gray. "That one looks like a dragon," Zoe said, pointing up at a long, trailing cloud. Claire shaded her eyes with one hand. "I see it," she said. "Head there, tail over the trees." "And that one next to it is the castle," Zoe said. "But not the scary kind, the kind with snacks." Claire laughed. "You and your priorities," she said. "Dad says systems need incentives," Zoe replied. "Snacks are incentives." Behind them, Adrian approached with a cardboard tray holding 3 cups. His t-shirt had the Novacor logo on it, but it was wrinkled and slightly crooked, as if he had put it on in a hurry. He wore sneakers instead of dress shoes. A streak of grass stain marked one knee of his jeans. "What are my favorite girls plotting?" he asked. "Cloud dragons," Zoe said, "and snack castles." "Good," he said. "We will need both if the food truck line gets any longer." He handed Claire a cup. "Lemonade," he said, "with real sugar. Do not tell the wellness committee." She took it, the cold seeping into her fingers. "You are the CEO," she said. "Aren't you the wellness committee?" "Shared governance," he said. "Remember?" She watched him as he sat down beside her. The circles under his eyes were lighter these days. His phone lay face down on the blanket, not in his hand. When one of the engineers waved him over to a game of tug-of-war, he waved back and stayed where he was. "Your calendar looks different," she said. "So does yours," he answered. "No more midnight calls. I even took a vacation day." She arched an eyebrow. "Did you really?" He grinned. "Almost," he said. "I only checked my email twice." Zoe made a noise of mock disapproval. "Boundaries, Dad," she said. "We talked about this." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He leaned back on his palms, looking up at the sky. "No stars," he said. "Zoe will have to improvise." "I can see them anyway," Zoe said. "I have the map." She tapped her forehead. Later, after the water balloon fight and the raffle and the speeches, the crowd thinned. Someone kicked over a half-empty cooler. A group of kids chased each other through the trees with glow sticks. String lights flicked on between branches. They cast a soft gold over the picnic tables and the patches of trampled grass. Adrian caught Claire's eye and nodded toward a quieter corner of the park under a maple tree that held more lights than leaves. "Walk with me," he said. She followed him past the last of the folding chairs. The air felt cooler here, the sounds of the party softened. He stopped under the tree and turned to face her. For the first time that day, he looked nervous. "I had a whole speech," he said. "I have been practicing in my head for a week." "That sounds dangerous," she said lightly. "Too much time to edit." "Exactly," he said. "So I am going to try not to." He slipped a hand into his pocket and took out a small velvet box. It rested in his palm, dark against his skin. Her heartbeat picked up. "Claire Bennett," he said. "You walked into my life with rain in your hair and a file full of exit interviews and told me I did not know how to rest." She smiled, remembering. "You showed me that stability is not just something you force into place with schedules and long flights," he said. "Sometimes it is letting other people in, letting them see the parts you would rather hide." He opened the box. Inside, a ring caught the light. The stone was a deep blue, the color of the sky, just before it turned fully dark. Zoe helped pick the color, he said. She said it needed to look like a piece of night. Of course she did, Claire thought. "I am not perfect at this," Adrian said. "I am still learning how to be a decent father and a good partner without letting one cancel out the other. I will probably mess up the balance. A lot." "Probably," she said. He smiled, breathless. "But I know one thing," he said. "Every version of my future that makes sense has you in it. So I am asking." He drew in a breath. "Will you marry us?" he said. "Me and Zoe. We come as a package, no returns." Her laugh broke on a tear. It slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "That is the only package I have ever wanted," she said. He let out a breath that was almost a laugh, almost a sob. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Of course it is, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit as if it had always been there. A small delighted gasp sounded behind them. They turned. Zoe stood a few feet away, hands clapped over her mouth, eyes huge. A forgotten glow stick dangled from her wrist. "I knew it," she said. "I told my dragon." "You do not have a dragon," Claire said, laughing through the last of her tears. "In my head," Zoe said. "Same thing." She ran forward and threw her arms around both of them, pressing herself into the space between. "Does this mean you are staying forever?" she asked. "Yes," Adrian said. His voice went rough. "It does." "Good," Zoe said. "I already made a new map." They stood there for a while, 3 shapes under the gentle buzz of string lights, the distant hum of the city, reaching them in softened waves. A week later, rain returned. It came in a thin sheet across the bay, moving toward the shore, like a curtain being pulled. From the living room of their new apartment, larger than Claire's box and smaller than Adrian, Adrian's old glass tower, the 3 of them watched it advance. Zoe lay on the rug arranging a new set of constellation stickers. The ceiling above her was already a scatter of glowing shapes. She was adding more, joining them with lines that only she fully understood. "That one looks like a house," Claire said. "It is," Zoe said. 3 rooms, 1 sky. In the kitchen, mug steamed on the counter. Tea for Claire, coffee for Adrian. Hot chocolate for Zoe with too many marshmallows. When the first drops hit the balcony, fat and heavy, Zoe jumped to her feet. "Rain," she said, "test time." She ran to the sliding door and pulled it open. Cool, damp air rushed in. "Zoe," Adrian said, "shoes." She shoved her feet into sneakers without bothering to untie them and stepped out onto the small balcony, tilting her face up. "Come on," she called. "You said we would dance." "I do not remember phrasing it like that," Adrian said. "You thought it," Zoe replied. "Close enough." Claire laughed. She picked up the 3 mugs, handed Adrian his, then set Zoe's near the door where it would not be kicked over. "Let us go fail this test together," she said. They stepped out into the drizzle. The city spread around them, lights blurred by the soft curtain of rain. Water dotted Claire's hair, Adrian's shirt, Zoe's cheeks. For a moment, they just stood there listening. Cars hissed on wet streets below. Somewhere a siren wailed and faded. The sound of rain on metal and concrete made its own uneven rhythm. Then Zoe began to move. It was not graceful. It was hopping from one foot to the other, spinning once arms out, sending drops flying. She grabbed Claire's hand with one, and Adrian's with the other, and tugged. Claire followed, laughing. Adrian did too, if a bit more awkwardly. He almost sloshed his coffee onto his shoes. "You are terrible dancers," Zoe announced. "Speak for yourself," Claire said. "I am excellent at looking ridiculous." Adrian shook his head, smiling in a way that eased something deep in his face. "We are outside in the rain on purpose," he said. "I think ridiculous is the point." Zoe tilted her head back, eyes closed, letting the drops hit her lashes. "We are not avoiding the storm," she said. "We are dancing in it." Claire met Adrian's gaze over Zoe's head. Inside, through the glass, the star stickers on the ceiling glowed softly. A homemade sky above a room that finally felt like a home. Outside, under the gray, they kept moving together, 3 orbits intersecting in the small, bright space they had chosen to share. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.